Hello everyone, and in this video we are going to discuss about premises in JavaScript. So a premise object represents the eventual completion of an asynchronous operation and its returning value. So let's consider a scenario when we send a request to the server. Then we wait for the server to get us the data, and after some time, so let's say after 2 seconds or 3 seconds, the server give us the data and then we show it to the user. Or in another case, the server can give us an error that the data is not found or there is some other error. So then we will show the error to the user. So the premise will have three status. So the pending, so when we send this request to the server, so this waiting time is the pending state. Then the server when it give us the data, then at that time the promise is fulfilled. Now if the server reject our request and give us some error, then it is rejected. So it has three states: pending, fulfilled, and rejected. And once it's done, the promise is finish executing, then we say the promise is settled down. Okay, so now let's start and do some coding. So first of all, we will create a promise. So let and my promise is equal to new promise. And here we will pass two values. So resolve. So here first we will create an arrow function. And inside this function we will pass two values. So resolve and reject. And now let's say we have condition. So let's say if A is true. So let A is equal to true. So if A is true, then we will resolve and we will say request successful. Otherwise, we will write else and reject, and we will say request failed. So now, as you can see, we will check this value. If it is true, then we will send this. Otherwise, we will send this. So request failed. So now let's say my premise and dot then. So once you are finished executing this premise, then what we will do, we will create here an arrow function, and here we will see the response. So res, you can write anything here, and I will write console.log. So the response. So now in this case, as A is true, so we see here request successful, and so this will be returned, and once we return it here, then we will log it here. So request successful. So once it is done executing, then we will come here, and this, whatever the result of this premise is, it will be returned here, and then we can play around with the result. So let's say now if this is false, then we will get an error. So when we come here, we will reject it, and here you can see an error uncaught and promise request failed. So we have an error, but we didn't catch them. So let's catch them. So dot catch, and here we will create an arrow function again, and here we will write error, and we will write here console.log error. So now you can see is the condition is false. So we will return this. So we will reject the promise, and we can see we will come here and we will see request failed. So now we don't see that error, but instead we come here and show the error according to our requirement. So why is this important? Why we use premises? So let me demonstrate it to you. So let's say console.log. So before premise, and I will copy it and paste it here. And here I will change this inside promise. And here I will write after premise. So now you can see before premise. So that one. So all good. Here you can see inside premise. Yeah, so here obviously that's good. But here you can see after premise, which is this line, which is the last line in our file. And after that we can see request failed, which we will see here in this line. And we are rejecting it from here. So why is that? So when it is executing, so it will execute this line and then it will executing these. So this premise. But in the meantime, it will not wait for this. So it will execute this one as well. And once it is done, then it will execute it. So before completing this, it execute this line. So that's why we see after premise here and request failed after this line. So let's say we are sending the request to the server, then it will take some time, and after some time it will give us the response. So it will not wait for this response, and it will execute the after lines. So what we can do is we can do here, so dot then. So once the request is done, then we can do is create an arrow function, and we can tell them that once you are done all these things, then after this run this one. So now you will see before, up, inside, and then the request failed, and then after promise. So now once the promise is done, then we will execute these lines of code. So after promise. So now this will be executed once these lines are executed. But before that, it was not the case. So if I remove it again, you can see after promise is executed before this one. And we can change it to finally here. So whether the request is successful or not, we will execute this at any case. So in both cases, we will execute this. Okay. So now let's create a real example. So let me comment this. So let users is equal to new premise, and here we will create an anonymous function, an arrow function. So resolve and reject. Now let's write here. So let's create an XHR variable. and new XML HTTP request. So you can use the fetch API as well, about which we will create a video sometime later. But for now we will use this XML HTTP request. Now xhr dot open, and it will get two methods. So a string, so we will use the method get, and the another one is the string URL. So we will use some URL here. So here I will use this JSON placeholder API, which is free to use. So what is JSON placeholder? So it is a free fake API for testing and prototyping. So here it gives us some functions. So post, comments, albums, photos, to-dos, and users. So we will use this users. So when we click on it, when you go to this URL, you will see these 10 users. So I'll copy this link and I will paste it here, and now xhr dot unload. So when we load it, what we will do, if the xhr status is 200, so 200 means that status is okay. So we have successfully communicated to a server. So 200. So if it's okay, then what we can do is we will resolve and we will return this xhr.response. Otherwise, we will reject it. So let's say we have an error, then we will reject. So I made a spell mistake here. So reject. And here you will see xhr.status. So if the request is successful, we will return the result. Otherwise, we will reject it and we will return the status code. So now what we can do is, here we need to send this xhr request. So xhr.send, and now let's say users dot then. So once you have completed the request, then what you can do is get the response. So response and console.log. The response. So now you can see the result from this link. So let's parse this. So JSON dot parse, and now you can see 10 results. So 1, 2, 3 users. So all of these 10 users we get from this link. You can see Leon Graham had the ID 1 and the same result here as well. So we have successfully sent a request to the server. But what if we have, let's say, a typo? So we have an error, so uncut and promise. So 404 not found. So now let's catch this result, this error, catch, and you will say error. And we will console.log error. And you can see 404. So what we can do is, here we will write error and please try again. So now we can get this error. So here error 404 and please try again. But if I change this and remove this extra s from here, then you can see that we successfully get the result from here. Okay, now let's say here, if I write console.log and at the end of file, so here you can see this is the last line, but it executed before this promise, because when we send this promise, it will take some time, but in the meantime, it will execute this line as well. So it is executed before this one finishes. So now let's say we want this, once this finishes, then this will be executed. So here when we can write finally, and then so once premise is finished, so we can do something. So what we can do is we will move these lines of codes here. So once this is finished, then after this execute these lines. So do something here. So this will be now executed at the end. So once this is completed, then it will be executed. So that's how you can use premises. So let's say if we get the user's data, then we will show it to the user. Otherwise, if we get an error, then we will wait for it and show the error to the user. And in the meantime, we can show the process loader icon to the user. So that's how you can use premises. So that's all for premises, and see you in the next video.